Hi everybody, this is Patrick with Patrick Scale Studio. On build video 10, we are going to start addressing our superstructure. It starts on step 13 in the instructions for the USS Curtis Wilbur by I Love Kit in scale 1/200. So, step 13 calls for 4 parts. I've got 2 of them that cut out. I say cut out, they already came cut out. That is YH and YG1. B1 and B2 I have not taken off the sprues yet because when I started playing around with this, I came across some concerns. First concern here is just where these 2 parts attach to one another. There's a very large gap right there. Not super large for people in 1/1 scale, but if you are a little sailor in 1/200 scale standing right there, you could put your foot through that. So that gap's not supposed to be there. It's supposed to be not there at all. So we're going to address how to close that up. And then there's another gap here as well. When I put this down on top of the deck in the hull that I've already got completed, I see a gap right up there. No gap on either side, but the gap's right up front, right up in your face. So we can address that one as well and talk about how to take care of that. Also, I want to make sure that I would point out that there are 10 holes to drill on part YH. So starting with 0.4 millimeter, 1, 2, 3, 4. We already got one of done. 0.6, 1, 2, 3, 4. And a 1.05 millimeter, or just 1 and 2. So don't forget to drill out your holes. If you get everything put together and start going across all the stuff and you've got all this fancy great detail and everything glued on there, and then you're getting ready to put the details and the parts on that would go into those locating holes, you got to drill it out. You have to flip it over and drill it out with all that stuff on there, leading to a gigantic risk of all that stuff breaking off. Or worse yet, you get a couple of these bits done and you think, man, it's going to be easier to put all this stuff on this after I get this mounted to the deck and the hull. And then you don't have the option of turning this over and seeing these little spots to drill out. So don't forget them in step 13. Get them drilled out. All right, so as far as conquering this gap here goes, one of the things, or the one way I thought I would go about doing it is by building up some material on this rear bulkhead right here, and then creating a little shelf that would go over here, and that shelf would help push that up. This doesn't require a lot of pressure, not even a couple pounds, I don't think. Not a lot of pressure at all to bring that into true. So all I want to do is build up some material here to thicken this up to give us a gluing purchase, and then a little shelf that goes that way that'll help draw this little wedge up so that it eliminates that gap. So that's how we're going to get across taking care of that gap. I had originally thought possibly about putting this under some hot water and applying a little bit of pressure, but 3 issues with that. One, the plastic's pretty thick, so that water is going to be pretty hot, and this is going to have to been in there for a while in order to get that plastic soft enough, and then you have to cool it quickly enough. 2, there's the chance that bending that is going to bring other facets and other surfaces and faces on this part out of true. And then 3, because that's so thick and doing so, it's possible that could introduce stress cracks or stress points in the part itself. So I don't want to do that. I think it'll be a little bit more inventive and a little bit better solution to put a little shelf there to draw that up. As for the gap that appears here between this and the deck, that is 25 hundredths of a millimeter thick. And I've got plastic card that'll fit that just fine. I can put that right there, and yeah, I know man, that's such a minor gap, but it is very, very apparent when you put this part down on the deck. It is there. No gap here, definite gap here. And then in between here and there is a 0 gap that goes up to 25 hundredths of a millimeter gap right there. So I'm going to put 25 hundredths millimeter plastic card up here. And then I'm going to put some pieces here on the side, and then we'll do some careful sanding so that there's 0 plastic card by here, but there's the full thickness of the plastic card right here. This is just styrene by Evergreen. So once I get everything assembled, I'll be back in just a few seconds and we'll start working through it. All right, so first things I'm going to do, again, just because I've already preached it, I need to practice it. I'm going to go ahead and get these holes drilled out. You can see I'm just using my hands, my fingers in these tiny little drills. I don't need to get anything like a electric drill or anything like that. They drill pretty easily. No serious strain on my fingers, no real pressure needed or anything like that. They just all right, you can see all 4 of those now drilled out. Go through the opposite way just to make sure that perfect. And then later on, a little bit of a sanding sponge. Even right now, if you want. And that takes care of any little burrs or anything like that that are sitting proud of the surface. Those are all set and ready to go for when we've got the pieces ready to put in there. All right, so that is the 0.6 millimeter drill on those 4 holes. All right, so we've got 2 holes back here that are in, again, what I think is 0.8. So I'm not going to do anything right now as far as trying to sand those away. I don't want to make the holes any bigger than necessary. And for the most part, though, they're there. So I'll go ahead and get these ones up front, too. It's nice. The little locators are already molded in there. And then this is the 1.05. Okay, so here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All 10 holes done. Now I won't forget, just as much as I've been telling everybody else. Now, for going ahead and addressing this right here, I always get Evergreen scale models, odds and ends packs. It's great plastic. You get a variety of thicknesses of sheet styrene. Not only do you get the variety, some transparent pieces here and there, different colors, you can get some textured pieces there. So mainly what it is, just kind of offcuts. Stuff that they can't put into their regular bags for sale. They can put it all into just an odds and ends bag. and then it gives us plenty of thickness to choose from. Nice thing about that is I don't have to pick out one particular size and get only one package of that size sheets. It also includes this very nice thick sheet of styrene that looks like 3 millimeters. 3 millimeters thick. This right here has got very little flex. Cut pieces of that off. That should be great to help build that up so that I can put a little shelf there and then give us plenty of gluing surface. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off a couple of pieces of this so I can laminate those, one, maybe two, and back here, and laminate those onto this rear bulkhead. And with that, then I can cut out a piece just big enough, probably won't use this, maybe something thinner, to put that little shelf right here. And again, just enough to draw this up a little bit. And we don't need a lot of force, just enough though to bring that into true so it closes that gap. That's all we need. One thing to watch out for here is because B1 and B2 are going to go in there from here to there, we don't want that shelf to intrude upon where those long bulkheads are going to be. Otherwise it'll throw off the alignment for those. So really all we want to do is make sure that that shelf, which would stand proud of this right here and come up, make sure that that does not come past there. You kind of see what I did there. You wanted to double check, you could take like anything that might be a straight edge, kind of lay it there. And again, let's see, that's where that the bulkhead's going to be on the inside of this locating tab area. But nonetheless, it's, there's no reason to make it so exact. My marks fall right beneath that. And same thing on this other side. Just to double check ourselves and make sure that the parts aren't playing a trick on our eye. Again, black marks right below where that falls. So, all right, I'll go ahead and get a couple of these pieces cut out. I'll show you what I've got cut out and we'll get ready and prepared to put those down. Be back in a sec. All righty, got a couple of pieces cut that we will use to back that up. And no piece yet cut out for our little shelf, but the idea though is that right there. So as you can see, we've got a bit of an angle here, so what we're going to try to do is match the angle a little bit as best we can, and we'll go from there. Once we have that, glue that on, and we'll glue that on. As you can see, these are also shorter than where that part B1 and B2 will go. So B1 and B2 will be able to go and get seated in their normal place and be unaffected by whatever we've got going on right here. So no problems there at all. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and try to see if I can match that angle. As you can see, that's not a it's not a 90 degree angle right there at all. So see if we can get that matched. Once we get that matched, then we'll glue those down. Quick word of advice here. 3 millimeter plastic is not easy just to cut with this. So what I did was used this right here and drew this across a couple of times until I got a little trench, and then I was able to take this away and just continue using that. Much faster than using an X-Acto knife that cuts cleaner, cuts better, a lot better than using a little razor saw. So I definitely recommend using the Tamiya scribing tool for that. It just kind of really trenched that out and was able to snap the parts off without any problem. So I'm going to go ahead and work on getting an angle on these right here so they match up nicely to our part. And I'll be right back when I've got that kind of approximated to where I want it. Okay, I've gotten both pieces sanded where I want them. I was able to actually double check that the angle looks good by putting it right there. It was pretty close. Same thing on the other side. Normal gaps there because this is offset a little bit because of some of the detail on that bulkhead. But if I hold it away from there, it closes up nicely. You can see that angle looks good. It's good on both pieces. And sanding along large edges like that really invite a lot of room for error. So another tip to bring up right now is, besides being great for cutting your photo etch on, laying down a piece of sandpaper on there, and where's the back? I don't care what happens to the other side of this, but right there, that is perfectly flat. And if I want to work with a 90-degree angle, 90-degree angle, angled aluminum right there, just put this right next to that. For the most part, not putting a lot of pressure on this, but putting a lot of pressure on this with my fingers. And then I'm able to run that along the sandpaper on this perfectly flat surface and obtain that 90-degree angle. Okay, I am ready to go ahead and get these glued into place. As you can see, I've got them marked, by the way, with bow and an arrow with a hole, meaning that this side right here is going toward the bow of the ship, and the arrow with the hole means that it is going toward, this side is going toward the hull, which is down. So it'd be a little weird to say up or down because we're doing this upside down to begin with. So this right here just kind of tells me that that is what's going to the hull. That way, if these fall or something like that or fall out, you know, I'm able to pick them up and go right back to where I was. Also, I've got two kinds of glue here. One, I've got something that is a little bit thicker and is going to give us some curing time. Just this Model Master liquid cement for plastic models. So it's give us some curing time, and it's got a great hold, great bond. And then this right here, the extra thin cement, which we can use to, it's a quick setting extra thin cement, which we can use to kind of quickly tag, what's the word? I weld that in place. We want to kind of just kind of get it situated right there after we get some of that glue on. And then we'll use some of that right there to make sure that we get it kind of spot welded in place while this right here cures fully. And we'll use clamps also just to make sure that they don't go anywhere. So I'll go ahead and start with getting one piece set up. Now you don't need a lot of this. When you start putting pressure on, it's going to make this ooze out in all directions. We don't need a lot. So you might be wondering also, how do you know at what height to put that on? It's just going to require some guesswork. What you want to make sure, what you can do actually is you could even make that go proud a little bit. That, see? And then get a piece here and kind of use that to push it down. So now that is perfectly even with the part itself. And in this quick setting. Just apply enough to let it capillary right around the part. Don't be afraid of using enough of this. Just don't get it on the other side. As the name says, it's quick setting, so it's pretty hot. And it should kind of get that spot welded in place. After a minute or two, it shouldn't be able to go anywhere. So after that sets, I'll go ahead and put this one on right behind it. Okay, and now that that's set for a couple of minutes, relatively in good shape, not moving around, I'm going to go ahead and work on putting this one in place. Same deal. Not a lot. Don't need a lot. As soon as we put some pressure on it, all that's going to come oozing out. All right, and in fact, I already got just a little bit of mess in there that I need to go ahead and clean up now. And again, standing just a touch proud. Gonna use. All right, see that? So I'm happy with where that is. Is that 100% flat? Did I 100% match the angles? No, but I got it close enough where if I take some plastic and put it out there, it'll help accomplish what I want, which will be forcing that other part to come up a little bit to close that gap up. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get this quickly welded in place too with the quick setting. Drag a little bit across. Yeah, right there. Okay, so I'm going to let this sit. I want to let it sit for about 24 hours. I'm going to clamp this down, put some pressure on that. In about 24 hours, this should be rock solid. So I'm going to go ahead and clamp that up, let it sit, and I'll be back. And for you, what will be just like a second. Alrighty. Now that this has sat for a day, these pieces are on there. They've cured. It is rock solid. Not going anywhere. So that's a good thing. So at this point, I'm going to take this piece of styrene now, and we're going to glue it right onto that right there to create that little shelf to help force this in true when we put it in like that and get it glued up. Okay. So all we're going to do is I've got a couple clamps, and we're going to glue it down, and just like these pieces, we're going to let it sit for about a day just to make sure that it has plenty of time to cure, plenty of time to set up. We want maximum strength on that within reason. I don't think we want to wait weeks. I don't even know if weeks is necessary, but plenty of glue, so cement or whatever you want to call it. We make sure that we get as strong a joint as possible. And again, it's going to ooze out. And because of that, I'm going to start laying it down from this side, and I'm going to roll it back to kind of help any glue that oozes out go out the side that's not facing out. Shift this over a little bit. We'll stay within our black marks, so we don't have to worry about the parts B1 and B2 being able to lay down like they're supposed to. Now that in place, I'm going to go ahead and use these tiny little Irwin quick grips. They are very tiny. I've got a couple of the very giant ones. These are almost like cute, you could say. I'm going to start from the middle. Oops. So we're going to go to the middle. Let's actually get it in the middle. There we are. All right. And let me get a third one. Now that should have plenty of time to cure. Plenty of time for that glue to set up. We'll give it a day. And then when we come back, we should be able to glue this part in and watch that gap disappear. The gap that we were worried about. Once we get that and we check and make sure that that's good, then we'll work on this right here. This should be pretty quick. Again, I'm just going to mainly be gluing some of the strip up here to the bottom of the piece and making sure that one, it's flush with this outside edge of these bulkheads, and then two, that it's glued on securely and we're able to trim up anything on the back end of that, because if we don't trim that up, that might affect its ability to sit down on the deck properly. So that shouldn't take hardly any time at all. This right here is mainly a waiting game, though, with making sure that that heavier glue sets up and that structure that we just put together there has enough time to fully cure. So be back here in about a second. It'll be a day in real time. But see you soon. Thanks. Alrighty. This is dry. This is solid. This is on there. And it did its job. I've already played around with it a little bit. Oddly enough, I just, for the first time, noticed the fact there's a little plastic booger in there, but that's easy enough to clean out. Just like so. So, that's on there nice. Very solid. And that fits like a glove. No more gap. That plan worked out very well. One of the things that I noticed is these joints are all faceted joints or mitered joints. So, and it's supposed to, for the most part, it's pretty nice. For the most part, it works out pretty well. But you get in close, you can see there's some flaws in the joint. So I've done some sanding to kind of bring that back a little bit. Same thing on this side. Bottom here, right there, along these. A little bit on here, not so much, but just mainly to make sure that that's nice and smooth and flat. But sanding there, to help improve how those corners look after this part goes in. Also, this right here, again, smooth, flat, perfect for assembling this, because this has to be flat. The instructions call it out. In fact, as you can see right here, pay attention to the straight assembly. I don't know exactly about the grammar, but that's what they're talking about, is want to make sure that this is sitting flat when you put it together. And the reason behind that is it's going to sit down on the deck, and the deck from here back is completely flat. So you want to make sure that that's flat. So that's that. I'm not going to go ahead and glue it right now. I will probably do that while I'm not recording, just to make sure if then something comes up and I start swearing, I'm not capturing that. Plus, it's pretty easy to glue this. Just take some glue, throw it around the joints, give it a little bit to set up, and then smush it together and clamp everything in place. That's really all gluing that entails. But what I do want to do and accomplish prior to that, and prior to going anywhere else, is one, talking about getting these pieces on there, because we have to work on the gap. And so what I did was, because this right here has to follow the exterior or the outside of this piece of plastic, was I flipped this over right there, held it down nice and tight, took a pencil, traced all the way around it, straightened out the lines because you don't get 100% straight lines because of these little bumps and a little detail on there. So after I got that done, I was able to take plastic strips and cut them to size. So at this point, all I have to do is glue this onto the bottom of that, wait for it to dry, snip off the excess, and then gently sand away the areas right there so it goes from gray plastic up to white plastic. So I'll go ahead, while we're on here, we'll go ahead and actually get that done. I'm going to move this aside. Don't need all of that. One thing that this will come in handy for is when I'm gluing this piece down, I'll be able to put this, the edge of this, onto that, just to make sure that that piece of plastic is perfectly lined up and flushed with that outside edge. So let's go ahead and get to work on that a little bit. That's the way that I put it on there. All right. Go ahead and set that into place. All right. Get some of those strings on there. And we don't want any glue fingerprints on the part itself, because with all the detail and everything, that would be incredibly difficult to clean off. All right, so it's in place. I'm just going to use this toothpick to press that in. All right, that looks pretty good. Yep, and I think under some primer and some paint, that should virtually disappear. Plus, I'm going to take a little bit of this extra thin and just run it along there. Kind of help make that edge disappear. There we go. And at the very end, it won't take a lot. Just to take a sanding sponge and carefully go in there and clean this up. Again, as long as I'm not leaving any cement fingerprints. All right, on the back side, I'm gonna go ahead and make sure I'm gonna get this glued into place. All right. Glued into place. Next up are these little diagonal pieces. Okay, see there, I'll just put on there. There's going to be some overlap. That's okay. And come back and cut that off, sand that off, and do what we need to do. I'll put this one over here. And put this one over here. After we get this finished up, we'll talk about my next steps I'm going to take care of off camera. And also going to discuss another concern that I came across while I was fitting this and checking the gap of this out. But it looks like there's going to be even more prep to do on this chunk of the superstructure. Title states humble beginnings, right? Let's go ahead and okay, there we go. As you can see, we got that in place nicely. I'm going to go ahead and do the other side. I'm just leaving this there until this is dry. All right, so go ahead and get some glue on this edge over here. All right. This is just enough extra thin to where it'll sit on there a little bit without immediately cooking off. And by that I mean without evaporating immediately. So there we go, just about there. All right, and there we go. Okay, those are both glued in place. And take a little bit of our extra thin, run it right here on the outside. I'll do a little bit on this. And again, when everything's said and done, we'll end up cutting it off right there, cutting it off right there. We'll take a sanding stick, sanding sponge, and we will very carefully sand these diagonals there to where it goes nice smooth transition from this gray plastic up to this white plastic right there. And what that should accomplish is eliminating the gaps from there all the way around. When I put this down on the deck, we won't have those gaps. That's the aim of this exercise. So while I've got this, and the last thing we should talk about on this video is the last concern I found about this piece. This is a great molding, by the way. I don't want to take anything away from the fact that this was an outstanding molding. But like everything injection molded, it's got its limitations, and there are certain parts of the technology where imperfections can happen. So we'll go ahead and just bite it off real quick. And take a look here with our straight edge. You can see that that is not straight. There is a bit of a rock there. You have to push on this in order to make it straight. Now, normally this wouldn't be a problem because we would just put a piece of styrene or something in there, clamp it out, space it out like that to kind of keep that wider, and that would eliminate that inward bow. It wouldn't have a concave appearance after doing that. We would flatten it up. But it does have these really interesting, almost like tunnels through this superstructure. There's that B1 and B2 part right there are kind of these interior bulkheads that run from fore to aft. So there would be like this great big long wide hallway going all the way from here all the way back. I don't really expect anyone's going to get down there with any kind of a endoscope or anything like that and try to check it out and make sure that there's no obstructions and it goes all the way through and that all the detail on that bulkhead is present. And in fact, this right here gets a large door with a small door or hatch cut out of it. So there's even less visibility this way than there will be this way. There's no hatch or anything right here. You can see there's no hinge detail or anything that's going to go over there. No hatch. However, if you take a look at this, there's not really a whole lot that's going to be visible. So what I figured out I can do is on the deck of the ship. Actually, I'll tell you what, let me put this down and let me get this ship. Okay, so we've got these wonderful placement plates right here that this follows for the most part, except for on these sides. It doesn't match up to these sides because that matches up to the B1, B2 parts that run forward to aft. So what we can do is run some thick styrene out to about there. Nice thick styrene like that, right out to about there. And what that should do is when we put this down and clamp it down with some glue, it will force that apart a little bit to where it's straight and true. And as long as we don't carry that all the way back, as long as we don't carry that all the way back to, maybe past this point, It's only going to be that little bit right there. You won't even be able to tell that we ever did anything there. I think that's the way forward. So between the end of this video, which is coming up very soon, between the end of this video and the next time, which should be build video 11, where we touch on what we've done to make things right, I will have gotten these cleaned up, sanded, the inside of that cleaned up so it fits down on the deck right. We'll have this glued together, and I will have those styrene strips put into place on the deck so that when I put this down, I'll be able to show you how that spreads apart and how that looks better. So that's going to wrap it up for build video 10. As always, comments, questions, concerns, if you have any suggestions about what I could be doing differently here, or you have a better idea for conquering some of these problem areas, please feel free to leave those in the comments. All we can ever do is work on getting better. Your suggestion might help somebody else out, and if they decide to take a different path than what I've done here. I appreciate your time and joining me. And until next time, happy modeling and take care.